tener que cambiar el lenguaje a inglés por nuestros dos invitados del día de hoy, Alan Ringvald y Ana Hakobyan. I think Anna is over there. I didn't saw Alan yet.
I'm here. Yep.
Great. Y Ignacio también, Ignacio González, el cónsul de Uruguay en San Francisco, también es parte de este panel. Así que para comenzar hacemos una breve introducción. Let's make a very brief introduction of the panel and each member of this panel. So the panel is called "The State of Tech Ecosystems in the U.S. and Projections for 2020." For this particular panel, we thought that why not invite people who had experienced firsthand the impacts and changes of the main U.S. ecosystems, New York and San Francisco. And well, the aim of this panel is to discuss main changes and impacts from 2020, how the current crisis is affecting each regional ecosystem, and the way of doing business in the tech sector. So welcome Alan, Ana, and Ignacio, our consul in San Francisco, and of course, Carlos Acle, VP of Global Markets of Cuti, that is going to be moderating this panel. To introduce the members of this panel, I'll start with Ana. Ana Hakobyan is Head of Business Development for Pyxis North American Operations. In her role, she oversees Pyxis US operations and is responsible for generating new opportunities. She's been in this role for over 2 years now, and she works very close with the whole team here in Uruguay. So thank you, Ana, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Ana. And today we'll be joined also by Alan Ringvald. Alan is a 3-time founder and a former Googler. He's now CEO and co-founder of Relativity 6. Alan former ventures have been backed by Khosla Ventures, Bill Gates, and NFL quarterback Tom Brady. He's an MIT MBA graduate and of course, now a future Uruguayan passport holder. And Relativity 6, just to tell a little bit of his company, Relativity 6 is a product of his thesis. It's a machine learning platform which enables insurance agencies and brokers to accurately predict customer behavior and anticipate their needs. So thank you, Alan, for joining us today. I don't know if Alan is yet in the platform. And last is our consul in San Francisco, Ignacio González. I think most of us already know him. Ignacio has been working very close to the Silicon Valley tech ecosystem since October 2019. And Ignacio has been building bridges and connections between our tech ecosystem and San Francisco for last year. So thank you, Ignacio, for being here today. And to moderate the panel, I welcome Carlos Acle. Carlos Acle, he's A13 CEO and Cuti's Global Markets Vice President.
Thank you, Federico. I don't know if we wait a little bit for Alan, or shall we start?
Alan is yes, Alan is here with us.
Okay, good.
Sorry, guys, I'm here.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for the three of you for joining us. As Federico says, when we were building this event, we thought that it was great to have 3 people that are in the battleground, and they can talk about how the industry in the United States was affected. But for a starting point, maybe we can take a few minutes and each of you can tell us a little bit about the ecosystem where you at. Basically, as Federico says, Ana, it is located more in the East Coast, and Ignacio and Alan are more in the West Coast. We know that there are different ecosystem, and maybe we can start if each of you can tell your impressions about each ecosystem. So maybe ladies first, and Anna can start telling us her impressions.
Yes, sure. Well, thank you very much for making me part of this. I feel like I deserve a Uruguayan passport as well. I'm always surrounded by Uruguayans, so in my heart, I'm already one. And I can say that this meeting would have been fantastic if we did it over asado, but maybe we keep it until the days get a little bit better. So yes, I'm based in New York, and you know, this is probably the places that had the biggest hit during the COVID. And you know, if we just take general days, I am representing Pyxis, which is an ecosystem.
Sorry, Anna, we lost you.
And that, you know, this ecosystem was born out of a desire to do something fun, do something cool, incubate startups and those who are passionate about technologies. So today we are over 350 people, and we provide services in the space of the e-commerce, machine learning, infrastructure, cybersecurity, drone technologies, and so on and so forth. Carlos, do you want me to go on talk about what's happened in the US from our standpoint, or you want?
Yes, please.
To do it later? Yeah. So what I would like to do is there are three areas that I would like to cover as per what happened in the US. The first one would be what was the impact on the businesses and the trends and what we have experienced. The second one would be the company's behavior and what we started seeing companies doing as of March 15, I would say. And then the third one is a piece of advice that I would give to the companies like yourself, because you have a lot of operations in the US. So maybe I start with a piece of good news, is that outsourcing is not going away. Next year, between 2020 and 2021, it is predicted to spend 50 billion on the outsourcing. So that's a great news for all of us who is in this sector. What we started seeing as soon as COVID hit is that large companies, those are the ones which are Fortune 500 with multi-billion-dollar budgets, and those which have multi-month digital strategies, they started experiencing the biggest hit. It's kind of ironic to think that these are the companies who have the largest amounts of money that were the first one that started rolling back. The thing is, they did not have the flexibility of the smaller or mid-sized ones to adjust and to turn around their processes and start doing new things. And what we saw them doing is rolling back and falling back on their legacy systems. So we had 2 or 3 massive e-commerce implementations that I would say, like, immediately within a week of COVID, budgets. And that was completely different if we look into what was happening with the mid-sized ones. So, you know, those that I would say, for example, implementing the Magento platforms or the Demandware, who could do a turnaround, they really started having a very big increase in their clientele. And smaller product companies, especially the ones, well, the obvious one, obviously, the Zoom, or, you know, if we think of Calendly, or if we think of some of the tools that people are using these days to manage their work from home, they saw a big increase. What also started happening is that the company started dealing with acceleration plus uncertainty. Now that goes back again to those big monster companies that have very long and very complex risk mitigation strategies that needed to look into, well, what do we do? Not used to uncertainty and not used to the acceleration. So if some of you are working with for these types of clients, you probably experience that. What we started seeing, the other piece is data. So more data, clearly more problems, and more governance. This goes along with one of my advices that if you need to start understanding as companies a lot better the data governance and the regulations, in California especially, there are new data governance regulations. So that would be one advice for the companies working in that space to pay closer attention. We saw incredibly large increase in the space of the cloud and infrastructure because everybody realized that they need to start transitioning to the cloud services. So if you're not in that space, that maybe it would be good to look into. That's a niche that I am seeing. And the other one, the cybersecurity. So obviously, everybody started working from home. So all the tools that require cybersecurity are in high demand. And things such as transparency, ethics, and compliance, which is very strongly linked with the data, became very important. So now when we're having conversations with the new clients, a lot of times the follow GDPR policies. How do you do your data governance? These are the issues that coming up a lot in the questions that we're hearing from the vendors. So that's on the trend that I'm seeing. Yeah, maybe one other thing to add is slowly towards the end of the year, I would say in November, this monster companies started slowly recovering, but I would say I see the decrease in the budget. So they would probably still spend about 30% of what it was originally planned. Everybody is afraid of being Amazonized. So that's a term that's being widely used in the States these days. And if you are in the business that can help the companies to avoid that, then clearly you are in a good spot. So for example, Stripe became a huge competitor for almost everybody who is in the payment sector. And there are a few examples.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Couple of interesting acquisitions that I wanted to mention. If anybody knows Postmates, that was a company that was essentially a food delivery company in New York. So, you know, New Yorkers just love to have everything delivered to their doorsteps. And what Postmates started doing is picking up food from the restaurants that would not offer the delivery. And they were acquired for over $1 billion by Uber this year. So it just shows how the things are changing. Some interesting things that I saw happening where a large events planning company partnered with a technology company. So instead of going and doing it on their own, they merged the forces. And a lot of that we saw happening in the US where companies started to partnering like left and right, some out of desperation, some out of opportunity. So if you are partnering, if you are going that route, I would definitely recommend to do a thorough due diligence on who are you partnering with, what is the reasons that these companies are approaching you. We see a lot of them running in different directions. So that's some stayed focused and some just became very careful.
No. We lose him, right? We lose her, right?
Yep, so it seems.
Okay. Let me type her. So maybe we can switch to Alan. well, maybe.
I am really sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm in a tech company and my internet is not failing on me today. So I'm really sorry about that.
We lose you for the last minute.
You lost me for the last minute. Okay, so I was talking about the Postmates and how Uber acquired them.
Right.
Yes, the other couple of examples that I wanted to mention is partnerships, right? So everybody is partnering left and right, and some companies are doing it out of desperation and some are doing it out of strategic visions. So I would certainly recommend that if you are going that route of partnering with a certain vendor, just do your due diligence thoroughly. The other thing I would caution, and we saw that happen in our company because everybody is working remotely and because it really doesn't matter where you sit, some of these US companies started hiring directly from the offshore countries. So we have multiple cases where our developers have been approached directly by companies in San Francisco, companies in New York, companies in Canada, offering to hire them. So that's just something that I would be cautious of because it's not going away. Work from home is not going away. So definitely pay attention. And that's probably also something that, you know, to address in your employee retention. So that was a painfully learned lesson for us, but I can share it here. And going forward, nothing is, at least for the next year, conferences are not coming back, networking is not coming back, at least in the way we're used to, the networking is not coming back. So the three things that I would advise to focus on would be thought leadership, content, and visibility. So when I mean thought leadership, what you offer needs to be relevant, needs to fit a certain niche, and needs to have a very thorough content. So when you're going out there, make sure that you have that thought leadership. The content, so your content needs to be crisp, up to date. I would really make sure that when you're communicating something, be it campaigns, be it your LinkedIn campaigns or mass email, really pay attention to make sure that everything is written crisp and clear. And the third one, the visibility. So make sure that you are appearing in the searches because everything is now digital. The more you pop up in the areas which are relevant, don't go about after everything, but just find your niche, find where it is that your leads are hanging out in the digital space, and I would really make sure that you appear there. So yeah, so that's from my side, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. And apologies again for my internet.
Thank you very much, Anna. Very thoughtful insights, and I think that very useful. Switching to Alan. Alan, can you tell us a little bit about how you're seeing the industry, the trends?
Yeah.
The main impacts this year?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Carlos, and I appreciate everyone's time. Super excited to be here and chatting with you all. If it's okay, let me just give you some quick background so you have some context about me and how I fit into this whole world. So about 4.5, 5 years ago, I started a data science company. So very focused on machine learning, artificial intelligence. Started actually in grad school back in Boston at MIT. Met my co-founders there. One was a professor, one was a classmate. The classmate was actually, he's from Mexico, and he came to MIT straight from Mexico. And that's relevant because very early on in the company, we made a strategic decision to hire data scientists, data engineers, software engineers out of Mexico, actually, so out of Guadalajara. It's a big tech center. At the time, some of our investors thought we were a little bit crazy. They wanted us to hire people close to us, make sure that they were in the office every day. And it was actually pretty interesting because my co-founder, the Mexican co-founder, Abraham, actually initially was in Boston with me and then moved to Mexico full time to be with the team. So it wasn't a full outsource offshore kind of a thing. We have 22 people there. They have equity. They're kind of employees, but it's been really interesting. Things have changed a lot in a short period of time. So excited to just give you my thoughts from the actual field. So one thing that's been really interesting from an ecosystem perspective is that it's all changed, right? So I used to have to go to, I'm in LA, Los Angeles right now. I used to fly to San Francisco to meet investors or do things like that. That was the world of the past. Now, I'm sure you guys have all seen it. There's been so much migration from San Francisco, especially in the tech community, that you don't have to do that anymore. Everything's fluid. I feel like COVID genuinely changed the concept of remote work, where, you know, we work with companies all over the world, and they used to require me to fly over there and meet them. But now that's obviously not possible. We have technology like Zoom. It's not perfect, as we just saw, right? But it works well enough. And the idea is that US companies are so open to offshore outsourcing teams in a way that I've never seen before, ever. Literally just in the last 2 weeks, I've gotten 10 requests from US companies to give them some resources on the data science, data engineering side. So if anyone's listening on this meetup, get in touch with me. I definitely have actual real opportunities with companies. It's funny because it's not just what you think, right? It's not just, we know e-commerce is going crazy and doing really well. We know that obviously communication tools like Zoom and in-home fitness stuff, all that. But even industries that you think would not be looking for resources right now are desperate for a lot of these data science, data engineering resources. Things like even in like the hotel hospitality industry. So actually, I genuinely have a lot of leads for whoever's interested. And I actually think like that's actually the key point is that while companies here in the US are super open to working with offshore, the problem is there's been so much demand for it that like the companies get so much spam, so much communication. Like to Anna's point, like how do you partner? How do you actually show credibility so that you're not just a message on LinkedIn of another random outsourcing company? I get 5 of those every single day, honestly, and I don't respond to any of them. So I think one thing for you guys to think about is, you know, yes, there's a ton of demand, more demand for outsourcing work than I've ever seen before, but the approach still has to be very thoughtful. You can't just send, you know, 100 LinkedIn messages a day to random people based on their title and expect great results. There's just too much spam out there. So something for you guys to consider and what we should be talking about is how do you create those meaningful partnerships with US, either people or organizations, so that you do have that level of trust and credibility? Because that's where a lot of this comes down to is how can someone that you don't know that's in a different country feel comfortable working with you, giving you very, very sensitive data, and actually investing in you and having the resources available to actually do a full project. So I think that's really the spot to focus on. I think there's a ton of demand across industry. It's just, you know, how do you approach it? So that's what I think is like the key point to focus on from my perspective. And I'll stop talking there unless you guys have questions or thoughts.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you very, very much. Ignacio, we can switch to you. Basically, if you can provide us and give us some insights and thoughts about what you have been seeing this year, trends, and any insight will be great.
Great. Well, thank you guys for organizing this meetup. Thank you, Alan and Anna. And Alan forgot to say that he's on the Slack group of the consulate, so you can reach him right there.
Please do.
So yeah, I mean, 2020 has been a crazy year. You know, lots of ups and downs, incredibly, as you know, even despite all this chaos and disaster, there was the pandemic, still companies managed to grow. And as Alan mentioned, there's a great chance for outsourcing. I mean, as Anna also mentioned, the shortage of talent in the US is still there. So, you know, outsourcing will still be a thing in 2021, 2022, and so on. So there are Uruguayan companies that have lots of opportunities. Of course, as I've talked to many Uruguayan companies that they've been hurt when they were working with hospitality companies, and which basically they canceled or postponed their projects. So hopefully by 2021, I guess the third or fourth quarter, we can see, or maybe even before, we can see some projects gaining traction again in that area. And one thing that Anna mentioned, which I would like to also underscore, is that there's lots of things going on with cloud services, automation of processes, AI, machine learning, of course, cybersecurity, and also there will be lots of opportunities in terms of IoT as well, given that 5G will be more widespread during next year and the next to come. And there's something that you mentioned before, and the ambassador mentioned in his intervention, was the Open Digital Lab that's being created in Uruguay, where you can try and test 5G and work with IoT over there. So that's a great thing, and it's a great thing that Uruguay is implementing this kind of resources for Uruguayan companies to try and test there and then bring their products to US.
Thank you, Ignacio. Going again with some of the questions. Basically, I want to ask we can change a little bit the order. We can continue with Alan. Which do you think that are the main changes in the client-provider relationship? Basically, how Uruguayan companies can build trust in this context of no traveling, no facing customers, etc.
Yeah, no, I mean,
we can start with you, Alan, then Anna, and then Ignacio.
Well, yeah, I'll be quick. I mean, I think there's like two levels, right? There's the macro understanding about Uruguay. Honestly, my dad's from Uruguay. I love Uruguay. I wish I was there right now. But I didn't know that Uruguay, like I kind of knew, but I didn't really understand that IT was such a huge export for Uruguay. I didn't really understand, how developed the country was and how many resources there were. So I think there needs to be some sort of, macro level push from Uruguay, honestly, or friends of Uruguay, to help people understand that you don't just have to go to the Ukraine or whatever, like Mexico, whatever it is. There's a lot going on in Uruguay. It's a great country. English, everyone speaks English. The time zone isn't bad. So like there's that element of kind of like awareness that needs to happen. And then on the micro level, it's just about one-on-one relationships with, honestly, like people like me, anyone that's connected to the ecosystem that can get exposed, because we're the ones that are getting approached by companies saying, hey, do you have any resources? Like, do you know any good machine learning people? Like it really is down to that level of, go network, find a person that you think is connected in the US or within the industry that you want to work with, and get to know them, create a real relationship. Let them know what you guys can do. And I think that really is, it's simple, but I do think that's a huge way to build trust, and get one client first, then you have that referral. The case study is huge. And then from there you can go along. It's complicated. Whoever wants to talk, I'm happy to spend as much time as you want to talk about how to do it, when you get interest, how do you price it? What's the best way to work with a US company really tactically? Because you can't just have data scientists and data engineers. A lot of times you're going to need someone in the middle that can understand the business implications and how to operationalize the predictions and things like that. So it's a complicated question, Carlos, to be honest, but being aware of it, I think, is obviously step one. But again, happy to talk to anyone after.
Thank you, Alan. Anna, any thoughts? I think you're Anna.
Yep.
Okay.
So I think I will absolutely agree, Alan, with everything you said. So maybe just a couple of things to add to that. Don't approach this work as you still work for the US company, they are the client, but approach this more from a standpoint of a partnership. So, and own that. So a lot of times I have people tell me, well, but I can get better rates in India, but I can get better rates in Ukraine. Well, you're not Ukraine and you're not India. And yes, it's okay that you do have higher rates and own them. So going into any conversation with any client, this goes along with what Alan is saying, is that make a little bit of an education of what is Uruguay, what it stands for. Every presentation that we do to a new customer or a new lead, we start with a one slide that says, what is Uruguay? And there are 10 incredible facts. And I'm also happy to have an offline conversation of what we're showing in those facts. You know, Google is building a center there. You have the free laptop for every child, the high level of the literacy, and so on and so forth. So I would go in first there, set the benchmark, and set the tone that you are interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. So that just changes the dynamic right away. So I would definitely focus on that. And the second piece would be what I mentioned before. Make sure that your message is crisp, your message is clear. You know, if you said that you're going to show up, you are there. And, you know, these are just all very small pieces that brings together the professional profile. And same way as Alan, if anybody wants to speak separately, happy to share more in-depth advice.
Thank you very much, Anna. Ignacio, what can you tell us about how, in your experience, you know a lot of our ecosystem. You have been working with us for the last 2 years. You already know a lot of the San Francisco ecosystem. What do you recommend us to build, to continue building trust in this era?
I think I'll build on Alan's answer. I mean, you have mostly I should talk about the institutional job I have from the consulate and from the embassy and from different consulates in the US, is that we need to make aware, like, people in the US, what they're missing out by not knowing Uruguay. Of course, we cannot provide the numbers other countries might provide, but we can provide, and as Anna said, we know we can provide good quality, and it's not just about the price, the cost of the service. You know, I just saw a report on Clutch which said that costs was at sixth in the lists of interest of companies when they are thinking of outsourcing. They're first thinking about efficiency, about increasing expertise, flexibility, and then cost comes sixth. So I think that's something companies should be aware of. And as the ambassador also mentioned before, it's important that we need to build a brand around Uruguay, and that Uruguay, and as I always mention, they're not going to know us, you know, here in the US, at least because of football or soccer or because of beef. They should know us. So there's a blank space, and they should know us like Uruguay is technology. So we can build that. And it takes time, of course, and it takes money and lots of effort, but if we can get there, eventually it will be way more easier for Uruguayan companies to land here in the US and be able to reach more new clients. Of course, you can get more clients out of referrals, but you first have to get that first client. So I think that's the main challenge. And I think Anna mentioned something interesting a little bit more on the micro level. It's about trying to get yourself noted. I mean, working on your search engines as well. It's a very interesting thing and important. Sometimes, you know, you go on a website and you see on Google Ads and you see ads from software development companies from many other countries, not Uruguay. So that's something you should also companies should also work upon. But I think in a general level is, how do we make US companies aware that there's something they need to know, which is called Uruguay.
Thank you, Ignacio. And I will continue with you. In part, you have already answered this question. But which do you think are the main influences in an outsourcing decision for an American company? You already mentioned some variables, some indicators from Clutch, but if you can share that, and then we continue with Anna and we end with Alan.
Well, I've had, like, in this past year, I've had different answers. For example, some people say they're country agnostic, so they just don't look first for the country and then for the company. So they just look for what they need. If you have what they need, they're gonna hire you no matter where you are. But it could matter, but still, I mean, if you got the service they need, they will hire you. So I think that's number one, and it's a little bit of what was stated on the Clutch report. It's about efficiency. It's about delivering. It's about the flexibility that you may provide to them also, and the ease to make business with. So I think those are like the main things. You might think about what a US company is thinking when they want to outsource. Of course, I just keep thinking over and over again about how is that process by which a US company decides to outsource. And Alan, mentioned his example, which is just perfect. So his co-founder, he's from Mexico, so they obviously went to Mexico. So how can we make people aware that there's also possibilities, even if they don't need to have a Uruguayan co-founder, but how can we make them aware that there's a possibility, there's a chance, they can include Uruguay in their shortlist? And hey, I've heard this company from Uruguay doing great stuff. So how do we intercept, or do we merge in their decision process about outsourcing? I think that's a key thing that we should work upon in the next few years.
Great, thank you, Ignacio. Anna, we can continue with you.
Yeah, maybe just a couple of things to add is culture is an extremely important piece to look into. So I would not underestimate that when, and that goes both ways, whether you're assessing or they're assessing, they would look very closely into the culture. Generally, the US companies, and especially this year where the stress became so much more, the pressure became so much more, everybody is looking on somebody they can rely on, and they trust that you can do the work, right? So that would be one of the key criteria, is that they want the people that know what they're doing, know what they're talking. So not just the technical expertise is extremely important, but also how you communicate it, the whole business language, the whole coming client relationship. I don't remember whether it was Alan or Ignacio mentioned that, just having developers, that's not, even if they're just taking developers from you, you always need to have somebody on the management side who would be that face person with the client. First of all, that relieves the stress from your developers, and second of all, that also provides that communication on the same language, and that's usually is a critical piece of success.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna. Alan.
Yeah, I think those are the points. Yep.
Yeah, I'll keep it simple. Kind of just echoing what everyone's saying. So as I think about a buyer in the US and how they evaluate, yes, price matters, but to your guys' point, it's not number one usually. It's really all about trust and not getting in trouble for making a decision, right? So like the decision maker who's going to say, let's outsource, needs to feel confident that the company, like to Anna's point, the company's going to show up on time, deliver what they say they're going to deliver, make it really easy to do business, which is not talked about a lot in tech companies, right? We talk about results, we talk about code, we talk about predictions and algorithms, but we don't talk a lot about, how do you communicate effectively? How do you build relationships with the company you're working with? All of those types of things. But ultimately, again, it comes down to credibility, trust, and ease of doing business.
And basically, on how do you think that companies in Uruguay can build trust, in the distance? Basically, we will not be able to travel, I don't know, maybe for the next
a while,
6 months or so or more, depending how the vaccine evolves. And and that part. So basically, which will be your thoughts, recommendation, how we can build trusts with those customers? With existing ones, it's easier, but with the new ones.
How much time do we have for this? That's I mean, it's the $1 billion question, really.
Yeah, I know.
I don't have like a specific answer. I think it's just it's really about, because you can't go and meet someone and have a real relationship in that way. You just have to find those connectors, those people that are willing to talk to you, are willing to see what you have, and then open up their network to you. And then just do it small. And to Ignacio's point, it's so hard to get that first one. But once you get that first one, the world does open up a lot, because once you have that case study or that referral that says, these guys are great, they deliver on time, they did everything we needed, it does open up a lot. But you know, it does take effort and energy and being resourceful to build relationships if you don't already have them. So don't have the magical perfect answer for that. But I think these conversations like we're having today, even, and bringing more people into this specific ecosystem that aren't from Uruguay or kind of maybe peripherally connected to Uruguay, I think is a really actionable first step. So just my opinion.
Thank you. Ignacio, any magical answer for that? How to build trust?
Honestly, I mean, it's as Alan mentioned. I mean, you can build trust. Once you have your client, and you know, just deliver and do the things that you're supposed to do, and that's it. But from a distance, it's quite difficult. I mean, you just have to get a hold of things which are maybe not related to your company, but more to the country, let's say. So we come from Uruguay. It's a stable country, politically, economically. You know, I'm going to show you these things. These Uruguayan companies have worked with these other companies. So, you know, sometimes you try to build on that so as to generate some more confidence. Or these American companies have been working with these Uruguayan companies, and they've had these great results. So, you know, and probably Alan can say this better, but Americans like it American. So
yeah, for the sort of, yes, right?
Yeah,
like
I mean, it's a cliche, but generally speaking, yeah,
you're not wrong.
So if you can show them that Uruguayan companies have been working great with American companies, that will help a little bit. I mean, it's as far as you can go. I mean, remote-wise, you cannot go any further when you're dealing with someone for the first time.
Yeah. Thank you, Ignacio. Anna, how we can build trust?
Yeah, also a $1 million question. Look, I think you need to be creative. I would really be creative and be very authentic in what you are communicating. So by creative, I mean, if you were at the beginning would go and say, okay, well, this is the project, this is how much it's going to cost, and this is how long it will take. Tell them, give us a chance, we'll do a POC of 3 weeks. Give us a chance, be very, very upfront with that. And then right away, there is the opportunity to do something where they can start trusting you. So I would start thinking this way. Don't undermine the Uruguayan ecosystem itself. So, you know, this is exactly the conversation that we're having here. Maybe we should be having more conversations. Maybe companies inside you.
We lose Anna, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So, but basically, for finalizing, if I will trigger the last question. But if someone has any question, you can anyone can type it in the chat, and
this has never happened to me in my whole professional career. This is really so.
No problem. We are friends and family here, so
yeah, it's unbelievable. Sorry again.
no problem. So you were telling us a little bit about how to build trust.
Yes, so I mentioned like be creative, I mentioned be authentic, I mentioned
creating the 3 weeks project.
Exactly, yeah, and go out there and tell them, we be also a little bit bold, because even though you are just going and doing the development, you also can go and see some pain points which the clients don't see, right? Like this is the time also to be a lot more outspoken, to come up with your own ideas, and that's being very much appreciated. So something that we see when we go above and beyond, when they're telling you, okay, this is our pain point, and then we come back and we tell them that, look, but you have not paid attention to the other 2 or 3 pillars, and this is how you can start. It suddenly resonates. So then they really see that you're putting in work and you really genuinely want to help, as opposed to just become a vendor, and that immediately creates that level of trust.
Excellent. So the last question we have, and as I mentioned before, if someone has any question, they can type it in the chat. It is basically which will be your message for next year? Basically, how do you see business? How do you see the tech industry hopefully growing, hopefully for all of us, and like basically your final thoughts about that. How do you see the world and the tech industry in 2021? We can start with Alan, and then Anna, and we finalize with Ignacio.
Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's been a crazy year. Initially, we saw, I think it was said in the panel, a bit of a, I think Ignacio said it, like companies kind of went away, the demand wasn't there. But man, over these last 3, 4, 5 months, it really, the message that I have is it's very optimistic. It's booming. It's booming, and never before have US companies been as open as they are now to working with outsourced teams, working remotely, not being in an office, and expecting the same level of service and technology. So now's the time, honestly. I think 2021 is going to be huge, specifically for what we're talking about right now. And you guys should get ready for that. I think there's going to be a lot of increased demand from every industry. Like I mentioned, it's not just e-commerce and the ones you expect, but even the ones you don't expect they're coming back, right? We're projecting that the economy is going to do really well once, hopefully, the vaccine starts finding its way. So I would just get ready, because there's a lot that's going to happen over this next year.
Thank you, Alan. Anna?
Yeah, so what I would say is, be bold with what you do, because this is the time to try it out, experiment, be bold, have fun, because as awful as this time is, this time will not happen again, or hopefully will never happen again. And this is just also the time to have fun, in the sense that you could try out the things that you wouldn't be able to try before. Know very well and very clearly what you want and what you do. So don't be all over the place, because you're gonna run around and there's so much stuff out there. So be very sharp focused, and just be authentic to your message. So your message should always contain your story, your human side, because everything becomes digitalized, everything becomes on your Zoom screen. And what we sometimes forget, that we're still humans, that you are the people who are behind these companies, and these are humans behind those founders. These are humans And that's something that, you know, when you bring it to the forefront of your communication, your pitch decks, your materials, then that creates a very lasting stories. And then suddenly they say, oh, you remember this guy who had a story with XYZ, let's talk to them. So they're not going to remember that you talked about Python or Java or anything, but they will remember your personal story. So just always remember that piece.
Excellent piece of advice. Thank you, Anna. Ignacio?
Yes, just building on what was mentioned before. I think 2021 is going to be, of course, way better than 2020. That's kind of an obvious statement, but I still think it will be kind of a transition year depending on when the vaccine will be widely available. And once we get there, hopefully 2022 will be just, you know, an awesome year. Yeah, but you cannot predict because, you know, today you say this and then you never know. We've witnessed this firsthand this year. But I definitely think that there will be lots of opportunities for year one outsourcing companies next year. So as you guys mentioned, be prepared, be alert, and just, you know, we just have to be very alert and keep working and making ourselves notice in this great market.
Thank you. So I don't know, Federico, but I don't see questions. Maybe you have any. And
Pop up.
I have one from Santiago. Ignacio mentioned the example of not seeing Uruguayan companies on AdWords. Any other example of mediums where the panel would like to see more exposure or examples of content/value by outsourcing firms, not necessarily local, that are really stood out to you? Basically, other places where we should be thinking to have presence. And
I've seen few Uruguayan companies that had tremendous success with inbound marketing, and they do it very, very well, very professionally, and very specific about what they do and what their target is. I think that's an interesting option also to think of beyond AdWords.
Alan?
You know, one. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, and after you.
Anna.
You know, one simple thing that everybody can do whenever you tweet, add a hashtag Uruguay, right? That's just maybe make it part of your practice that, you know, that it doesn't take anything, but whatever you tweet, put a hashtag Uruguay.
Right.
And then I would just say, kind of echoing Ignacio's point, is just be thoughtful, right? It's interesting that inbound can work if you're very strategic, you take time to write a good message. So I think that makes sense. It's going to be a numbers game, of course. So you got to be patient and be systematic in the way you do it. I would also say, you know, earlier on I said, don't send a LinkedIn message. It's spam at this point. You get so many, which I firmly believe. But I do think LinkedIn as a platform is a great place, right? That's where a lot of the decision makers are spending probably too much of their time. I would find a way into the feed, right? So, and what that means is maybe, you know, you partner with a company you've worked with to do a LinkedIn post and everyone shares it and tags it. And a lot of credibility can be built if someone that you know is involved in a post that you're seeing. So I think there's ways to use that platform that can be incredibly impactful, but I would stay away from just like straight cold messages on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Alan. So I think that we don't have any other question. I think we are a little bit better before the time, so that's great. And I want to thank Anna, Alan, and Ignacio for the time. I think it's as I mentioned, it is great to have people that are in the battleground telling us their thoughts, what they have seen in the industry. They have a lot of experience, and I think that all the insights that you provide were great. Also, I want to mention that as not the similar role as Ignacio, or its similar role, also we have other consulates in other places of the United States. As the ambassador mentioned earlier today, we receive a message from Matthias that it is our counselor in Chicago, in Illinois, that obviously the other consulates, all the consulates are available for helping the Uruguayan companies to target the market, the regions. So I invite the rest of the companies that are here to use them, to get in touch with them, and to use their help to find new customers and to build the network that, as Ana, Alan, and Ignacio mentioned, it's very important in these times to have this network built and to get in touch with them. And I think that the use of the embassy, it is very, and the strong presence we have in the United States as a country, it's something that we should use more. So if we don't have any other questions, I thank again the panel members. I also thanks for accepting the invitation, and thanks for the people that joined today. We have nearly 60 people attending the panel, which is a very good amount of people. And thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Bye bye.
Luck. Yes. Bye.
Genial. Bueno, entonces, para seguir el meetup, vamos a esperar unos minutos más hasta las 5 para el último panel del día, que es de experiencias comerciales en 2020. Para este panel vamos a estar acompañados de algunos empresarios uruguayos, Jorge Corral, Gabriel Camargo, Cristian Sarrón y Nicolás Amarele, y va a estar moderando el panel también Carlos Acle. Un poco la idea de ese panel es una reedición de un panel similar que hubo en el Cuti Forum. Y bueno, la idea es volver a traer los mismos integrantes y ver cómo cambió su forma de hacer negocios y sus estrategias comerciales en este año. Así que en unos minutos los espero todos nuevamente para comenzar ese panel. Bueno, muchas gracias y nos vemos ahora a las 5.